He's a professor at Duke University, where he leads a team of scientists researching how the gut microbiome impacts human and animal health. He also helps direct the Duke Microbiome Center that seeks to broadly cultivate and support the microbiome sciences across the Duke campus. Give it up for Dr. John Rawls.
Hi there. So we all like to think of ourselves as individuals, and our healthcare systems and even the biomedical sciences likes to think of us in that way too. If we drill into this a little bit more, though, what we'll find is that those concepts of individuality actually have a few different manifestations. We can imagine the individual is anatomic, the integrated whole of the body working together. We can think of individuality developmentally, the organism that goes from a fertilized egg to the egg in the next generation. We can think about the individual physiologically, how all the different body parts and organ systems relate to each other and communicate within a single body to achieve, a successful outcome. Immunologically, we might think of our individual immune system as a defensive system that protects us from a fairly hostile external environment. Genetically, we might think about our chromosomes that we inherited from our parents, and these concepts that a single organism has a single genome as another manifestation. And then evolutionarily, of course, we can think about ourselves as the unit of selection, or we can think about our genes as individual units of selection. So really, these concepts of individuality, if you think about it, they're really fundamental to how we think about health and how we approach health and medicine. But what I'm here today to try to convince you of is that there are some new ways of thinking about these modes of individuality. And as a microbiome scientist, what I'm going to try to talk to you about is how our emerging understanding of the microbiome, or the microbial symbioses that we engage in our life cycle, are actually showing us that maybe we've never really been individuals at all. So that's a pretty bold claim. I'm going to try to scratch into that a bit. But to start, what I need to do is tell you a very old story. So life on this planet's been around for about 4 billion years. Initially, those life forms were single-celled microbes, these bacteria or archaea. And then really about 2 billion years ago, the eukaryotes emerged. Those are cells with nuclei. But every animal form that you can think of only emerged in the last 700–800 million years. And as humans, we're going to be one of those very small branches down at the bottom. We're sort of recent news, right? So really, every moment in the evolutionary history of the human species has been on a planet that was teeming with microbes initially. So it should come as no surprise that our body plans are very much able to communicate with and integrate information from the microbial world around us. And we engage in all kinds of interesting relationships with those microbes, right? Just like these two cartoon figures here, many types of relationships can manifest. There can be pathogenic or antagonistic relationships. There can be also commensal relationships where both parties are sort of coexisting peacefully. Also mutualistic relationships where there's actually mutual benefit gained through the interaction. And you can think about all of these terms together as symbiotic relationships. Most of the time when we think about microbes, we're thinking about infectious disease, right? So the left side of the spectrum. But really, the vast majority of the interactions that we have had in our life cycle and in our natural history have been more along that mutualistic end of the spectrum. So then, if we think about the human body, when we're thinking about these kind of symbiotic relationships, the most prevalent interactions are with our microbiome. These are these complex communities that inhabit our body surfaces, that inhabit our homes and workplaces and the natural environments in which we live. And over the last 20 years, there's been this explosion of interest in how microbiomes are formed and function and the way that they contribute to our health. So let's come back now to the concept of the individual. How has our emerging understanding of microbial symbiosis and the microbiome affected some of these concepts of individuality? So anatomically, the bodies of each of us, as well as the animals and plants that we may encounter, are colonized with very complex microbial communities. Each one of our human bodies contains at least 100 trillion microbial cells. Developmentally, we know in a variety of different animals that the microbes that they associate with can impact aspects of development in pretty profound ways. Also, physiologically, many aspects of our physiology are affected by the microbiome with pretty substantial consequences for a variety of disease states. And immunologically, the microbiome is actually very important in helping to educate our immune system to teach us which kinds of microbial signals we should be responding to, and even physically and chemically can kind of prevent colonization by some of those pathogens. Genetically, there's a lot of really cool stuff here because the aggregate genome of the microbiome is vast and encodes capabilities and enzymes and other features that we do not carry in our own chromosomes. Moreover, these microbiomes are sort of transmitted through generations, and unlike our own human genome, they're relatively easy to modify, right? So there's a lot of interest in finding ways to do that effectively and safely. And evolutionarily, of course, the processes of evolution affect us as well as the microbes that we're colonized with a lot of mutual interaction between those different evolutionary processes. So again, a lot of different ways, a lot of different evidence that are kind of challenging these concepts of individuality. And there's a lot of interest in trying to move forward with this and to try to find ways of applying this new knowledge to improve human and animal and environmental health. So where are some of the frontiers in this field now? So there's still a lot of interest in trying to understand how microbiomes vary as a function of host health and disease. Also, there's a big role for ecology in this field, trying to understand the ecology of these microbial communities. Also, importantly, the function of these communities in states of health and disease, and also discerning the role of individual community members. Molecular mechanisms, which are oftentimes the hardest to get at, are also an important goal. If we can understand the chemical language that mediates these interactions, then we have an opportunity to sort of use that to improve health in different ways. And ultimately, and even now, we're beginning to see different types of new microbiome-guided therapies for a variety of different human diseases. So at Duke University, a lot of this work is aggregated in the Duke Microbiome Center. We have over 60 faculty members in about 17 different departments and divisions, really spanning the full spectrum of the life sciences. I'd be happy to talk more about that. You can use the QR code to learn more there. And if you really want to jump into the deep end, I'm very happy to say that next Wednesday, we did not plan this, next Wednesday, just down the road at the North Carolina Biotechnology Center, we're having the North Carolina Microbiome Symposium, which is bringing microbiome scientists from all over North Carolina, academic, industry, as well as some folks from the FDA as well to talk about regulation and marketing of microbiome products, as well as basic and translational science relevant to this field. So registration is still open if you want to check it out. And with that, I'll thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Questions for Dr. Rawls? Going to go to the back.
I've only heard of the gut microbiome as an important, I guess, new findings in how it affects our health. Could you give some specific examples on other body functions and organs that you're studying?
Sure. So the question is, are there known roles for microbiomes that exist in places other than the gut? Certainly, the gut microbiome gets the most attention, largely because it's the densest and largest microbial community. But there's an abundance of information on how, for example, the skin microbiome can affect a variety of states of dermatologic health and disease and wound closure as well. Obviously, the oral microbiome is going to have a large impact on dental health and also sort of transmission events that help colonize the gut. There's also, and this is a little bit jarring, but there's very good evidence now that even within our bodies, below those mucosal surfaces, there's actually a systemic microbiome that at much lower levels is within our body and different organ systems that's having a variety of different impacts on our biology. And then also, while again, we tend to think about as individuals and sort of what's happening right around our own bodies, there's a lot of important work going on how the microbiomes of the built environment, for example, can impact health and can also be modified to promote health. So these are all very, very active parts of the field.
Thank you. That's very provocative. My question to you is, why did you leave out the whole section on what can be done to improve your microbiome and therefore your full health, mental health, your stress, depression? I believe a lot of this has to do with our guts not functionally properly because of our nutrition, and because we as humans cannot make certain neurotransmitters without the gut bacteria. So when we kill our good bacteria with antibiotics and stress and lack of sleep and all these other things that contribute to our poor health, I'd like the other part of it, which is how to address those issues and how to fix them. Because actually it's really easy through nutrition and some other regimented protocols.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, there's only so much time up here, but for sure, those are all very active areas of study. I mean, you're kind of hinting at several things there. One is sort of the communication between the gut and the brain and various behavioral phenotypes, and there's connections between gut microbiome composition and stress, relevant to the first speaker as well. I think there certainly are nutritional approaches to modifying the microbiome. There's large efforts underway in individual universities as well as at the NIH to sort of really get into concepts of precision nutrition as it relates to the microbiome. And so, yeah, this is a very important and active area in the field. There are no easy answers there. I think there are foods that can modify the microbiome, but there's also a tremendous amount of inter-individual variation between different microbiomes, right? Your microbiome today is more similar to your microbiome 10 years from now than it is to anyone else sitting around you, right? And so the concept and the need to really develop sort of personalized concepts and personalized approaches to microbiome intervention is an important frontier in the field as well.
Thank you, Dr. Rawls. Appreciate it.